Hello, welcome to my article review. The article that I'm reviewing today is Mental Health. Is that a job for schools? This was posted by the Heshinger Report and written by Chelsea Shesley. So I just want to give you an overview real quick, but I'm going to highlight some points of this article. Basically, this author was asking, okay, is mental health services, is that an appropriate job for mental health professionals that are stationed in schools? So your school counselors, social workers, roles of that likeness. Because we already know that with COVID, things were kind of amplified with mental health risk in youth and adolescents. Um, but obviously, these people were experiencing COVID as well and might have been going through their own things, as well as, do they have the training and the know how in order to provide these services to students, as well as is this a community effort that's being overlooked, as well as, parents? Is this a responsibility on them too? So, like I said, I'm going to go through and I'm going to highlight some portions of this article. The very first thing that jumped out was in an effort to help federal and state governments are allocating hundreds of millions of dollars in new funding to cover everything from training more providers to running mental health awareness programs. Like I said, we have ESSER funds, we have the American Rescue Plan, and luckily, I feel like there's a lot of schools that are using the money correctly, but I feel like there's a lot of schools that don't really know what to do it because maybe they're efforts into providing mental health services were lacking in the first place. Um, but it goes on to say advocates suggest that the school building is the most accessible and least stigmatizing place for mental health support. But others are raising concerns about how many tasks often overburdened schools can handle. Um, so I get it. School is the most easy access to the youth. But they talk a little bit further down in this article about informed consent. Sometimes when practices or I guess services are being implemented, like say small groups, even though a parent is supposed to know, sometimes people can get away with not. Um, Getting permission or having them opt out or something like that, and a parent might not be aware of that their student is even receiving mental health supports, and they were saying that this could be dangerous, um, because of that lack of knowledge to the parent. I mean, just think of all of the um, school shootings that we've had, and people start talking about mental health and what were the supports that that student had. Let me scroll down. Okay, this next part. Determining what services to offer in schools is a question that has to be answered 14,000 times in 14,000 local school districts. Mr. Pundisio says, adding that people will disagree on the appropriate use of government dollars for mental health and publicly run schools. So, like I said in this article, they do talk about how in one state, I guess the staff actually wanted to implement a mental health center. Like they had all this money and they wanted to do it. And I want to say it was at a high school, but then their board and their parenting community turned it down. They were just like, no, you're not going to spend this money on that. What they ended up spending it on, I'm not sure, but they were just very against spending the money in that way. Okay, the next point I wanted to highlight is right here. Says Dr. Hoover says research supports the establishment of multi-tiered systems of support in schools. In this model, schools provide such services as universal lessons or wellness checks for all students and more targeted intensive support for all those students identified as needing additional assistance. So as an education consultant, this is one of the things that I support schools in doing is figuring out, what are your services within MTSS model, but then also how do you provide those collaboratively? Because say if, and this is something that's talked about further down in the article, is that, school counselors, social workers, school psychologists were often double, sometimes triple our caseload And so we have so much to do, so many students to see. But, when you look at the data, more than likely, these students with mental health challenges or behavior challenges are typically, the same group of students. So we're servicing the same group of students, but if we are collaborating and talking about it and coordinating how we're going to service, then we're able to do more. So I might be doing a grief group and I'm talking to the social worker, and instead of her doing a grief group too, she might be facilitating a bullying awareness group or something like that. But being able to expand our services as a school um, overall, because we're collaborating and coordinating what we're doing, but also making sure that that's based on data too. We're not just going to choose anything just for the sake of choosing. We're making sure that it is a data informed decision. All right, so there were two more parts that I wanted to uh, highlight for you all. Okay, so it says school staff need proper training and oversight, he says. For instance, if teachers are administering universal mental health screeners to students, are they being trained or is it seen as just another task to add to their workload? He believes students and staff should all be trained in mental health awareness and know what referrals they can make if someone exhibits signs of needing help. So, again, the training is needed. So make sure that you're reaching out to people who are properly trained to help you and support you in this work. And then I wanted to highlight this last paragraph here. The mental health of our young children can't fall on the shoulders of school psychologists, social workers, counselors alone, nor should it, says Dr. Hoover. It should really be a shared responsibility of everyone, including families, teachers, and the students themselves. They want to help each other. And so I think that this is something that can be argued. Um, Me personally, I'm still pondering on what I feel like is our responsibility as far as, I'm a school counselor. So, how far does that go? Because, at some point, it's almost like being a dance coach. And that's what I have experience doing is being a dance coach. And as a dance coach, one of my responsibilities is uh, supervising the girls while they were at the games. However, is it also my experience or is it going overboard when I have to transport students to the game because they don't have a ride? Like, yeah, it's necessary in order for them to get there, but is that really my role or is that additional? You see what I mean? That's what it kind of sounds like to me. Like, either way it needs to get done, but who's responsible for doing it as far as providing this mental health work to students? Because we do know that, at least for school counselors, we can only counsel so much. We are not supposed to be doing long-term counseling with students. That's when we're supposed to refer out. So for those students that do need long-term support, how involved do we get with them in um, making sure that students have what they need? So, like I said, you read the full article, decide for yourself, comment, and let me know your opinion on this. Is this really support staff a responsibility, or is, like the article said, is this family, teacher, and student responsibility?